Hello folks, Scott here with my 10 cards, 1 kit video featuring the Love From Lizi January 2020 card kit, the Hey Sweetie card kit. I must apologize for this being late. I was on holiday, did a little bit of a second Christmas with family back in Kansas. It's always good to touch bases with family, and I'm having a little hard time getting back in the gear, but here we go. As usual, I do take the 5 card stocks provided in our kit, and I do make card bases with them. Very nice, soft range of colors for this Sweetie card kit. Now, if you made a New Year's resolution to lose weight, this kit might push you over the edge with all the sweeties and treats included in it. On our first card for this month, on one of the pink card bases, I can't avoid it, we get just hoping to bake your day a little better. I really like some of the puns in this stamp set this month. This is pattern paper from the card kit. I fussy cut the donuts out and removed the bottom half, which was pink. I matched that up with this white confetti pattern paper and die cut those together with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, so that stitching detail goes all the way around the edges of that. I did take some glossy accents to the icing on all of those donuts and glazed them all up, let them dry. I attached the confetti pattern paper directly to my pink card base and outlined that with our lemon yellow straight peel-offs for a little glitter around the edge. Now, once my glossy accents had dried on my donuts, I went ahead and stamped this sentiment from our stamp set. I stamped that using walnut stained Distress Oxide ink, and I did add some clear embossing to that. I thought that was a better color than black, since the donut outlines seem to be in a dark brown rather than a black. I thought that matched very nicely. I added our fussy cut donut piece on top of the confetti with a little foam tape, 3 little sequins for our sequin mix, just hoping to bake your day a little better. A really fun, nice donut card for any donut fan on your list. So I figured I would just move through the sentiments in our stamp set this month. This is on the yellow card base, and we've got our Hey Sweetie card. Now, I really like that. We got that great embossing folder in our kit and some of this great matte gold and matte silver specialty cardstock. Those metallic cardstocks really take an embossing folder so nicely. I cut a piece of that gold with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die and then ran it through with the embossing folder to get that nice embossing. I matted that on a thin black mat and glued those directly down to my yellow card base. I cut this little Sweeties square from that cut apart pattern paper that we had, and then matched that with a blank piece of that linen pattern paper and stamped the Hey Sweetie on that and embossed that with some clear embossing powder as well. I matted both of those squares on another thin black mat and mounted them to the front of this card. This has a single layer of foam tape. This has a double layer of foam tape, so they're a little bit different in height. A few sequins from our mix to highlight the sentiment. I really like how that metallic cardstock really classes up this card. This isn't sweet, this isn't whimsical, this is very sharp. Hey Sweetie, I believe Lizzie said that these little cookies are called Sweeties in Great Britain. I added little touches of some sparkle pen to the base of all those Sweeties. Hey Sweetie, a really sharp hello card. Now, of course, we got all sorts of cookie stamps in our stamp set, and I had to play with the Gingerbread Men first. On the pale blue cardstock, we've got Without You, I'd Crumble, featuring 2 of those gingerbread cookie stamps. Really fun. I like this a lot. Without You, I'd Crumble. I stamped our gingerbread stamp on some 80-pound Nina Solar White cardstock and colored those with my Spectrum Noir alcohol markers. The nice thing about these stamps is that they're so detailed, you really don't have to add a lot of color to give them some really nice dimension. I did use my Versa marker pen on the little icing bits in their face and on their arms and legs, and use some white embossing powder to give some icing to our 2 gingerbread men. I then attached those both to a piece of that blue linen pattern paper and stamped this sentiment. I did cut this sentiment apart. I stamped those one on top of the other on this blue panel, and then I measured out a little 2-inch piece. I think that's 2 inches. Yes, right at 2 inches. I measured out a 2-inch piece, cut down those sides and around the cookie for a little shadow on our cookies, give them a little separation from that background paper. I cut this background paper at 3 3/4 inches wide, glued that to our pale blue card base, and then I added some of the sky blue silver pinstripe peel-offs. We got these in our November 19 kit, sky blue and silver peel-offs. I added those to the sides of our pattern paper in the back, and I also added those to the straight edges of our cut-apart piece. I did add this piece to the background using foam tape, so this is a little dimension there. This is one of the cookies from our die-cut sentiment piece. I added a little glossy accents to the jam heart there and added it to the front of our card with a piece of foam tape, and one of our blue satin ribbons finishes out this card very nicely. Without you, I'd crumble. I really like those Gingerbread Men stamps. Very nice. They're quite large, a good 1.5 inches tall or so. Nice, large gingerbread cookie stamps. Without you, I'd crumble. These would go really well with a tall glass of milk if you've got a milk stamp in your stash. I couldn't resist this card. This is on the green card base. We've got "You are one smart cookie. You're one smart cookie," with our little googly eye cookie there. So for our background here, I took 2 different washi tapes from the kit and alternated them next to each other on this green card base. Made a nice little striped pattern there. It's still pink, but I think the green mutes it down just a little bit. I thought those went very well together. I added a strip of our lemon yellow peel-offs on the top and bottom, and a few sequins from our sequin mix for a little extra sparkle on that. Of course, that washi tape has got a little bit of a sheen as well. I stamped this medium-sized cookie. This was like the medium cookie in our stamp set. I stamped that on some more Nina's Solar White cardstock and colored that again with my Spectrum Noir markers and fussy cut that out. I cut a piece of ivory cardstock with a Doris nesting die and curved our sentiment on a stamp platform to stamp it in the shape of a circle. "You're one smart cookie." I then matted that on a thin black mat. And then I knew I had this Eyeglass Stamp. This is from a Simon Says Stamp March of 17 card kit. This is the Some Bunny stamp set, which is actually still available over at Simon Says Stamps. They have this great eyeglass stamp right here. I knew I had that in my stash. I couldn't resist. That fits on the cookie perfectly, and of course those googly eyes fit inside those glasses perfectly. You're one smart cookie. A few sequins on our sentiment here, which is then attached to our card base with some foam tape for a little dimension. The cookies attached to the sentiment with foam tape. You're one smart cookie. Now I know that glasses and smart is a stereotype, but I'll jump at any opportunity to anthropomorphize food items. There you go. You are one smart cookie. Now, if there's that one chocolate sentiment, "You're sweet like chocolate," in our stamp set that I was having a little difficulty with because I couldn't really choose any specific chocolates in our pattern papers and stuff. So I dug around in my stash for some chocolate cardstock and found this from a Hero Arts kit. This is called Rich Copper cardstock. It came in our Hero Arts September of 2019 kit. Really nice. I thought that looked like chocolate. So I grabbed some of this, and on a pink card base, we've got You're sweet like chocolate. Now, I thought I was just going to use a frame of this chocolate cardstock, so I die cut a piece of that with 2 of my Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle dies, and I made a frame, and I actually liked the inner panel better, so I decided to use the inner panel, but I wanted a frame around that too. And I was looking at our sprinkle pattern papers, but all those sprinkle pattern papers have a lot of sprinkles at the top and they get sparse at the bottom. So I didn't think that looked very good as a background frame. So I took that sprinkle washi tape from our kit and I made a sprinkle frame out of that. I just laid all 4 sides of that down a 1/4 inch away from the edge of my card and then mitered the corners with my craft knife. Made a nice little frame. It's actually kind of subtle, but it still has a little shine. Very nice, and the sprinkles are evenly distributed from the top to the bottom. I took that inner panel of that, I'm calling it chocolate, cardstock, and matted that on a thin white mat and then glued that right down on my washi tape frame. I fussy cut this tower of cookies out of one of our pattern paper pieces, and I added that to the card front using foam tape. I also fussy cut a bunch of these chocolate wafers from another piece of our pattern paper and then covered those with glossy accents too. I thought that made those feel a little bit more chocolatey. You're sweet like chocolate. I stamped this with Versamark ink on the front of this card and embossed that with the Love From Lizi Very Vanilla embossing powder. And on the inside, I stamped this with the Walnut Stain Distress Oxide ink, and I did emboss that with some clear embossing powder. So there's that little touch of chocolate on the inside, a bunch of chocolate on the outside. You're sweet like chocolate. Now I have one more sentiment stamp in our stamp set that actually is a nice little pun. So for card number 6 on a white card base, we've got a cookie card for my cookie friend, featuring all of the other cookie stamps in our stamp set. Now I stamped all of these cookies on some Neenah Solar White cardstock, colored those with my Spectrum Noir alcohol markers. Now I stamped this digestive cookie on a piece of craft cardstock. I stamped that with the Walnut Stain Distress Oxide ink and embossed that with clear embossing powder. So that's got a really nice chocolate icing on that cookie. I added some of our Nuvo drops to the center of this jam cookie, a little bit of enamel dots to the other 2 cookies. I fussy cut them all out and set them aside to dry. I cut a 1 3/4 inch piece of that white linen paper and glued that to the center of our white card base. I outlined that with a couple of the lemon yellow peel-offs, and then I took that shaped washi tape from our embellishment bag, split that down the middle, added that to the top and bottom of our card front here. Once my cookies were all dry, I added them to this card front using foam tape. The little ones are glued directly to the card front. I stamped the sentiment and embossed that again with some clear embossing powder, plenty of shine, plenty of sparkle, a little bit of sparkle pen on our crackle cookie there to imitate sugar. Really nice cookie card, a cookie card for my cookie friend, a fun little pun there, and really nice cookie stamps. Now that actually covers every stamp in this stamp set. We've used every stamp in this stamp set. Now let's look at our dies. We got a few really nice dies in our kit. For our next card on that pale blue cardstock, we've got Birthday Wishes, Make a Wish, using that great cupcake die down there. This is also using that tissue paper we got in our kit. I just took some of my E6000 spray adhesive. This is a clear spray adhesive. It's very liquid. I actually just sprayed the back of the tissue paper and laid it down on my card front. Because that spray adhesive is very liquid, it really smooths out very nicely, covers the back of this card just perfectly. Now I took those same two Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle dies and cut a frame out of the silver cardstock and glued that directly to our card front here. I took that banner from our die cut sheet and added that to some of the silver cardstock and cut a little mat for that banner as well, using that same cardstock. Nice good shine there. I did die cut that cupcake on a piece of Nina Classic Crest Solar White cardstock, colored up the pieces, inlaid them all back. I did a second die cut on the silver cardstock and inlaid the sentiment in the frosting there, and I did add a little bit on the candle as well. Everything's nice and shiny. To give a little separation between our cupcake and our background, I die cut a circle of vellum, again with that same Doris nesting circle die. I glued the cupcake to the vellum, added those to the card front with some foam tape. I added the banner with some foam tape. It looked a little odd just sitting there next to the frame, so I added a little piece of silver cord to the top, kind of base that banner on something that kind of represents it hanging from there. Birthday wishes, make a wish, a nice birthday card, and a really terrific cupcake die. I'm sure that die will get lots of use in the years to come. A fun cupcake birthday card. Now, the other sentiment die in our kit was a Best Wishes die. I thought that looked really nice. I had some more of that chocolate cardstock to use as well. On a white card base, we get to our Best Wishes card. I really like that. That's a really, really nice sentiment die there. Best wishes. I die cut that sentiment die from 2 pieces of black cardstock and 1 piece of that chocolate cardstock, glued them all together for a nice chunky sentiment. I took this pattern paper and a piece of the blue linen pattern paper, placed those together and die cut those out with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I then matted that on some more of that chocolate cardstock for a little thin mat, and then I cut some thin strips of that chocolate cardstock to go on the top and bottom of that blue pattern paper there. I glued the Best Wishes right to the center of that banner, and then this is the chipboard cookie from one of our clothespins in the kit. I just popped that off of the clothespin. I used some Hero Arts glitter lacquer pen to lacquer up the jam heart in the center, and then a little bit of sparkle pen for some sparkle on the cookie itself. Best Wishes, I thought we had to justify that a little bit, so on the inside we stamped Sweetie. Best Wishes, Sweetie. This, of course, is from the Hey Sweetie stamp. I just cut those 2 pieces apart and stamped the Sweetie on the inside of this card using the walnut stain Distress Oxide ink and some more clear embossing powder. A nice shine there. Best wishes, Sweetie. This is a fun card. I love that pattern paper. Even though it's blue, there's still plenty of pink in there. Best wishes, a really nice sentiment die. Okay, so now I've got that frame left over from this card, and I have the inner silver piece left over from this card. I decided to put them both together on a yellow card base. We've got a friend is someone to share the last cookie with. Really nice, really sharp. A great friendship card. This, of course, is a paraphrase of a Cookie Monster quote. Nom, 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 nom. A friend is someone to share the last cookie with. I went ahead and embossed that silver panel with our embossing folder again. Those work so good on those metallic papers. Really pretty. I glued that and our chocolate frame directly down to our yellow card base here. This is one of the cookie stickers that I stuck to a scrap of white cardstock and fussy cut that out. I added some glossy accents on our jam heart there and some Prisma glitter for the sugar sprinkles. This sentiment I created using my Silhouette software and printed that up. This is using the Sign Painter font. A friend is someone to share the last cookie with. I actually printed that on some photo paper, so that sentiment has some nice shine to it as well. It matches the whole card as far as the shine goes. A friend is someone to share the last cookie with. I think that's a great friend card. Thank you, Cookie Monster. Yum, 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 yum. Now, of course, I liked a lot of the sentiments in this kit. Kudos to Lizzie for giving us some great puns in our stamp set this month. But I had one pun I was dying to use. So for our last card in this kit, this is on the green card base. We've got "You Drive Me Glazy." You drive me glazy with all of our glazed donuts. Now, these are 3 donuts from our pattern paper. These were the largest donuts in our pattern papers. I think this was on the pattern paper that had 4 of the large donuts. I glued that pattern paper to an extra piece of cardstock to give it some rigidity, and then used glossy accents. I used Hero Arts lacquer. I used some Nouveau Drops Morning Dew. I tried a little bit on all 3 of them. They all came out good. They all came out crystal clear. I'm pretty happy with those, but I have to admit that the Hero Arts lacquer pen levels out really, really nicely. I thought the Nouveau Drops would level out nicely because they flowed so easily, but they didn't quite level out. It's sometimes hard to cover over an area as large as this with your glossy accents and get a really smooth, perfect little glaze on top. But this is close enough that gets the idea across by all means. Now, this is a piece of that yellow sprinkles pattern paper. I die cut that with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, and I sent that through my printer and printed this sentiment using my Silhouette software. This is the Candera font for the You Drive Me and the Santa Fe font for the Glazy. You Drive Me Glazy. I printed that directly on this pattern paper, matted that on a thin white mat, and glued those to our green card base. I did go ahead with my glossy accents and glazed up that glazy there. So that came out really well. My glossy accents bottle has a tiny, tiny nib on it, so it was really easy to get that to fit that little sentiment. I like that Santa Fe font. It looks like icing. I then, of course, fussy cut the donuts with their holes, added them to the card front with various layers of foam tape for some nice height and dimension. You drive me glazy. I figured I couldn't avoid all of the pink in this kit. And after all, I mean, Homer Simpson even eats pink frosted donuts. So you drive me glazy. That's my big pun for this month, using those great donuts from the Love From Lizi 2020 January. Hey, sweetie card kit. That's my 10 cards. I hope you enjoyed those. I had a really fun time putting these together this month. I, of course, am thrilled to say that I used every single stamp in our stamp set. I think I figured that I used 10 different pattern papers in this kit, which means I have like 15 more pattern papers left that I haven't touched at all. So much pattern paper. This is that little cut apart pattern paper where I cut the sweeties out of. Tons of pattern paper left over. I did use a couple of pieces of our die cut sentiment sheet. I was going to use this, but that window got a little too small to put anything inside of. I used a good amount of both our silver and gold specialty cardstocks. I used some of our peel-offs. I did use the embossing folder a couple of times. I really like that embossing folder. I used one of our 2 tissue papers. Now, I thought this tissue paper was a little out of scale. If those sprinkles had been the size of the pattern paper sprinkles, I think that would have worked much better on cards. I will certainly use this to wrap a present or a gift bag or something with. This tissue paper was great fun to work with. I did use just about everything in our embellishment bag. I did manage to use all 4 of our washi tapes, a few of the sequins. I used 2 out of our 3 dies. I used a little bit of our Nouveau drops. I think the only thing I didn't really get to in our embellishment bag was those round tags. I didn't use one of those, but hey, I used one of the bows. I didn't use a clothespin, but I used one of the decorations from the clothespin. Almost everything in this kit. Of course, all of these extras will find a loving home in my stash for use on future cards. Believe it or not, this card kit is still available at Love From Lizi. If I've managed to spark your imagination or whet your appetite for some sweeties, please use my link in the description down below when you go shopping at Love From Lizi. I think I'm getting this up just before the sneak peeks start for the February 2020 Love From Lizi kit, so stay tuned for those sneak peeks and the release of the February kit. Again, please forgive my tardiness. It's great to be back from vacation. It's great to have seen family and friends. I hope 2020 turns into a great and marvelous year for all of you and for all of us. Please let me know which cards you like best here, and remember to like me, list me, pin me, post me, share me with all of your friends. Remember, it's hard to feel sad when you're eating a cookie. And as always, happy crafting. If you'd like more detailed information, better pictures, and product links, please visit my website at cardcutups.com.